Hi, welcome to another CEO IQ Fireside Chat. We're glad you're with us today. Our guest today is Ned Frey from Foresight Seminars in the Philadephia, Pennsylvania area. Ned has a terrific new program that he's presenting to CEO groups around the country called Heroes and Sidekicks. We thought it was something that our members would be able to come away with some clear action learnings. That's our objective out of each one of these fireside chats. So Ned, welcome to CEO IQ in our studio. We're delighted to have you with us today. Talk to us about your new program.
Ben, great to be here. We work mainly with CEOs and presidents of companies. I saw a movie years ago called Man of La Mancha. Actually, I saw the play years ago and then the movie. And in Man of La Mancha, Don Quixote plays a part where he works with a woman named Aldonza who has very, very remarkably low levels of self-esteem. But he keeps looking at her and speaking to her as Dulcinea, someone who is just very special, very unique, and has all kinds of gifts to give to the world. His relentless pursuit of only seeing the pearl within her caused her to change over a period of time and caused her performance and her life to be totally different. I looked at that, and I looked at CEOs and presidents of companies and the way they manage their people. And I noticed that so many of them give one compliment for every 5 or 10 or 15 pieces of criticism that are meant to be supportive, but come across as kind of deteriorating the self-respect and the self-esteem of the person. Looking at that and then looking at my family history, I really felt that if we could get people to look more at people and look for the pearls within them, the specialness with which they live, and constantly feed that esteem, build that esteem over and over again, that the results on the other end would be far greater in terms of what they're looking for to achieve in their business.
So how does that translate to a program called Heroes and Sidekicks?
Don Quixote is the perceived hero. Sancho Panza is his sidekick who tries to keep him sane. Don Quixote constantly fights windmills. Okay. CEOs don't always fight windmills, although we do have our windmills. I think we call them crisis du jour. We're not always fighting windmills, but we are always looking to create within the person a sense of esteem where the CEO or the person trying to help the other person is really the sidekick, is really the person whose goal is to be with that person and really help that person see the greatness that exists within them. And how do you manifest that in their lives and in their business? It's a simple concept. If you keep doing it, it turns out great. I have several members in a group that I work with who tend to have rage attacks on their people. They get frustrated, they get angry, they get impatient, and they blast on their people. It does exactly the opposite of that. And if we could just get them to look for the pearl in people, I'm not talking about, by the way, I'm not talking about enabling bad behavior. I'm not talking about not letting people go that need to be let go if they're not willing to do what it takes. What I'm really talking about is heavy levels of accountability. And as Mike Scott, one of a speaker that's out there on the circuit that talks about accountability, if they're not willing to do what it takes to be held accountable, you've got to let them go. But focus on who they are, and what they can be. Build that sense of hope that they can be something great and achieve something great. Everything changes.
Wow, that's a great mention. You know, we've had Mike Scott here in the studio for some fireside chats with us about his accountability program.
Great program.
And he talks about, one of the things Mike talks about is that you have to model first and then teach.
Absolutely.
So how does that play into what you talk about with CEOs?
If you're going to teach somebody how to play a violin, it's a really good idea to learn how to play the violin first. If you want to teach somebody how to build their own self-esteem, how to get to a level where they really feel good about themselves, I came from a place in my family history where not only didn't I have good self-esteem, I had really low levels of self-esteem. In fact, I had a lot of self-hatred. So did my brother, so did my mother. I watched my mother and my brother die of alcoholism because of the amount of self-hatred that they had. That was really what triggered the core of this program and triggered in me a desire to make a difference in people's lives. But I had to straighten my act out first. My goal was to get from self-hatred to low levels of self-esteem. I thought that would be terrific. If I could just get to not hate myself, like myself just, a little bit, that would be great. But in the process of doing that, I learned how to go from that to actually liking who I am as a person. And not only did my esteem grow, but my performance capability grew, my results grew. Everything I did was better than it ever was before.
And so what you're suggesting for CEOs is that you've got to look at where you are about yourself.
Absolutely.
In order to be clear about that and project it into your organization effectively.
Ben, I think it's absolutely impossible. If I spend time trying to help you, it's impossible not to help me. If I focus on making a difference in your life, I will automatically make a difference in my life. So it's both roads. It's really parallel. Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it.
A great Yogi Berra-ism.
A great Yogi Berra-ism.
Ned, we talked about some action learnings for CEO IQ members to take away. Let's talk about a couple of those. One of those is creativity that you talked about. How does that fit?
In order to really figure out where you're going to go in your business and to come up with better ideas, better options, what happens when a CEO has better options than they had before? They end up getting better results because they have different choices to make. We teach two different things. The 20 idea method, which is a brainstorming methodology about writing the first 20 things that come to your mind about any specific goal, plan, idea, opportunity, challenge that you may have. Just write the first 20 things that come to your mind without judgment.
Okay.
They can be some of the worst ideas you've ever heard. First 5 or 10 are fairly easy. The next 5 or 10 are very, very difficult. And that's usually where your best ideas come from. When you get done, pick one and implement it that day. I learned that from a fellow named Brian Tracy years ago. Brian used to get up at very early in the morning, read for a half an hour, and then do a 20 idea method every day and implement something every day. It is, in and of itself, a game changer.
So do something creatively every day, get those ideas out on the table, and then go make something happen with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
We also talk about mind mapping, which is a piece of software that I picked up years ago from mindjet.com. Great piece of software. It works the way the mind processes.
Yeah.
And you can use mind mapping as another creative tool that can make a huge difference. If you use those two on a continuing basis, you will generate more options, you will generate better options, you will generate better results.
Yeah, mind mapping is something we use at CEO IQ to plan all of our programs. In fact, this entire video program that we've done is all planned with mind mapping.
Very powerful.
So you talk about listening to your inner voice. What's that about?
I learned this a long time ago. I actually went for some training and was trying to figure out how I could be more effective. I was looking for ways where I could be competitive. Ben, I would look at people like you and I'd say, man, that Ben Griffin is really a bright guy. He is really super sharp. He is quick. He's just right there. I'm not. I'm not that quick. I'm not that sharp. I came from a place, as I said before, of really low self-esteem. I started looking for an edge where I could say, is there anything within me that I could really be good at that would enable me to be productive and of value to other people? One of the things I learned was, I'm not that left-brained. I'm also right-brained. Everybody is. And if I wanted to be a great leader and I wanted to be great at something, I need to incorporate both sides. So I started to work really hard with meditation, quieting my left brain, and starting to use my right brain more often. And I learned to listen to, you can call it an inner voice, Ben, you can call it intuition, you can call it gut feel, but I learned how to really listen to that. And I get some of the best ideas and some of the most productive ideas that I've ever come up with using that inner voice. And we teach people how to do that. So it's, if you really want to be a great leader, if you want to be, it is. And if you really want to be a great leader, just don't force your left brain to have to do all the work. Incorporate both sides.
A way I've always heard that is trusting your instincts.
Absolutely.
I mean, listening to yourself and trusting your instincts.
Absolutely.
And so then the other point that you've got is this interesting phrase, 38 special.
Yeah.
So talk to us. What's that about?
38 special is probably the biggest game changer I know. When I was 50 years old, my father was 80. My father was in sales all his life. He grew into a position where he was a VP of sales, so he wasn't just out there selling. I had a sales training business at the time.
Okay.
And I hadn't spoken to him in a couple of weeks because I was on the West Coast and I was really busy. And I came back and I called him and I said, Dad, how you doing? And he says, where you been? And I said, well, I've been out doing a sale. What'd you teach him?
Sounds like a dad.
Yeah, it was my dad. It was my dad. And I said, well, I was working on this and working on that. He says, you know what the most important lesson I ever learned in sales was? Now, Ben, I had been in sales for 30 years. I'm 50 years old. My father's 80, and now he's going to tell me. It's like, now that you're 50, it's too late for you to benefit from this. Don't ask. I said, no, what was it? And he said, I had one rule, and only one rule. And he said that rule was I would never go home until I made a sale. My father sold powdered aspirin through a company called Standback, BC headache, it's that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's for people that can't, want to mix it with orange juice or water. They have trouble maybe swallowing pills, whatever the case might be. He was selling that day to pharmacies in Harlem. He had already sold to all the pharmacies in Harlem, and he had promised them that this was going to make them wildly successful. Ben, he went to every pharmacy in Harlem that day, and every ounce that he had sold them to begin with was still on their shelves. No one had sold any of it. But he had a rule. Got to be 1:30 in the afternoon, no sale. 2:30, no sale. 3:30, no sale. Most salespeople would go home. 4:30, no sale. 5:30, no sale. 6:30 at night, he made a sale. 38 cents worth of aspirin. And he went home.
Oh my gosh.
38 cents worth of aspirin, he went home. And I said, that's amazing. He said, you know why I did that? He said, I watched, now his parents were in depression. They lost their business in the depression. They lost their house in the depression. And my father was very, very fearful that that could happen to him. And he said, I had to come up with a rule that would guarantee flat out my success, where I wouldn't lose my house, I wouldn't lose my business, where I would guarantee to have success. He said, and I found that rule. But he said, I also knew if I let one day go by where I didn't honor that rule, I'd let a second day go by and a third day, because I knew I could be a little bit lazy, and then I would fail.
And so to summarize 38 Special, it's about making sure you do what you set out to do for that day and sticking to it. Is that about the right,
That's about it.
the right
Ben.
place?
What is the one thing that if you did it every day without fail would guarantee you the success you're looking for?
Yeah.
That exists for everybody. That's not just salespeople. That exists from the CEO right down to the
Right, all the way
newest
down.
employee that you hire.
Sure.
What is the one thing that if you, and then have the management of that organization hold every person accountable for doing that every day. Ben, when I was doing sales training, I used to charge $15,000 to $25,000 for my sales training. People would say, wow, that's a lot of money. I said, yeah, but I guarantee it. Well, what's your guarantee? I said, I guarantee you in the first year you'll get 10 times the amount back that I charge you for that sales training, or you owe me nothing. And it was all based on the 38 Special and holding them accountable for implementing that in their business.
So things for our members to remember: use creativity every day, find an idea that you can latch onto and make something happen with. Listen to your inner voice. Make sure you're paying attention to your own instincts and you're really thinking about right brain thinking, and stick to it. Make it happen every single day. Be consistent.
That's it.
Ned, I know you've got a whole national program you're rolling out. How do CEO IQ members find you on the web?
We have a website called Foresight1 at AOL.com. Actually, I'm sorry, that's actually my email address. It's Foresight, FOURSIGHT seminars.com.
Great. And we'll also have links to you on the CEO IQ website. So members, you can find Ned there if you'd like to know more about his programs. Ned, thanks very much for being with us today. It's been terrific having you. CEO IQ members, thanks for joining us for another Fireside Chat.